12 years in the Navy taught me discipline and patience, but she drives me insane.
The perfume hit me like a slap across the face at 2:17 in the morning. I sat in our kitchen, nursing my third cup of coffee, watching rain streak down the windows of our crumbling Victorian home. The house groaned around me, old bones settling deeper into decay. Barbara's key scraped against the lock, once, twice, 3 times before she managed to get it right. She stumbled through the door, designer heels clicking against hardwood that needed refinishing 5 years ago. Her lipstick was smudged, mascara slightly smeared, but it was the perfume that made my stomach clench. Something floral and expensive, not the vanilla scent she'd worn for the past 10 years. "John?" Her voice carried that fake surprise she'd perfected. "What are you doing up? Couldn't sleep?" I kept my voice level, watching her fumble with her purse. "How was girls' night?" Barbara's laugh came too quick, too bright. "Oh, you know how Taylor gets. We ended up at that new wine bar downtown, lost track of time." She was texting someone. Right there in front of me, fingers flying across her phone screen, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. The same smile she used to give me. "Must have been some wine," I said. Her head snapped up. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, just seems like you had a good time." Barbara's expression hardened. At 38, she still turned heads, still commanded attention at her tech company job. HR manager, 6-figure salary, always perfectly put together, always in control. "Are you accusing me of something, John?" The question hung between us like smoke. I studied her face, looking for the woman I'd married 12 years ago, the woman who used to laugh at my Navy stories, who used to curl up against me during thunderstorms. Should I be? Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and that smile flickered across her lips again. "This is ridiculous." She headed for the stairs, heels echoing through the house. "I'm going to bed." "Barbara." She stopped, one hand on the banister. "We need to talk." "Not tonight, John. I'm tired." "When then? You've been working late every night this week. Girls' night twice last weekend. When do we talk?" She turned, and for a moment I saw something cold in her eyes. Something I'd never seen before. "Maybe that's the problem," she said quietly. "Maybe we don't have anything to talk about anymore." The words hit harder than I expected. I watched her climb the stairs, listened to the bedroom door close with a soft click. Then I heard her voice, muffled but clear enough. "No, it's fine. He doesn't suspect anything." I sat there for another hour, rain drumming against the windows, coffee growing cold in my cup. At 42, I'd survived 2 tours in Middle East, built a decent private security business, bought this house with my own sweat and savings. But sitting in that kitchen, listening to my wife's muffled laughter from upstairs, I felt like I was drowning. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. "Your wife's car was at the Harbor View Motel tonight. Thought you should know. A friend." I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Harbor View Motel. 20 minutes from that wine bar she'd mentioned. 20 minutes from our house. 20 minutes from the end of everything I thought I knew. I didn't sleep. By 6 a.m., I was in my home office, door locked, Barbara's laptop humming on my desk. She'd left it downstairs, charging on the kitchen counter. Sloppy. The old Barbara never would have been so careless. Her password hadn't changed. John Barbara 2011. Our wedding year. The irony tasted like copper in my mouth. 12 years in the Navy had taught me patience, attention to detail. I'd spent months tracking insurgents through digital breadcrumbs in Kandahar. This was different, but the skills translated. I copied her hard drive to an external storage device, then started digging. Email first. Nothing obvious in her inbox, but the deleted items folder told a different story. Messages to someone named Eric Landry, dating back 6 months. The early ones were professional, something about a consulting contract. Then they got personal. "Can't wait to see you tonight. E. John's working late again. Perfect timing. B. You deserve so much better than him. E. I screenshot everything, my hands steady despite the rage building in my chest. There were dozens of messages, hotel reservations, restaurant confirmations, photos I couldn't bring myself to open. The laptop's camera folder was password protected, but I'd learned a few tricks over the years. Inside, I found videos, time-stamped, dated, every business trip she'd taken in the past 4 months. My phone rang. Barbara, calling from upstairs. "Have you seen my laptop?" "Kitchen counter," I said, minimizing windows. "Where you left it." "Thanks. I'm jumping in the shower, then heading to work early. Big presentation today." Another lie. According to her calendar, she had nothing scheduled until 10 a.m. After she left, I called Ned Patterson. We'd served together in Middle East, and he'd stayed local when we got out, opening an auto repair shop downtown. If I needed someone I could trust, someone who understood loyalty, Ned was my only option. "Johnny boy," his voice crackled through the phone. "Little early for a social call, isn't it? I need a favor, Ned. Can you meet me at your shop?" Something in my tone must have gotten through to him. "Give me 20 minutes. Ned's garage sat in the industrial section of town, squeezed between a defunct textile mill and a seafood processing plant. The smell of motor oil and salt air mixed with the lingering stench of fish. Ned emerged from under the hood of a pickup truck, wiping his hands on a stained coverall. "You look like hell," he said. "Feel worse." I handed him a flash drive. "Everything's on here. I need you to look at it." Ned plugged the drive into his computer, scrolled through the files. His expression darkened with each image, each message thread. "Jesus, John, how long has this been going on?" 6 months that I can prove, probably longer. "You want me to pay this Eric guy a visit? Explain some things to him?" The offer was tempting. Ned stood 6'4", 240 pounds of muscle and bad intentions. But that wasn't the play. "Not yet. I need information first. Everything you can find about Eric Landry." "Consider it done." Ned ejected the flash drive, handed it back. "What about Barbara? What about her? You gonna confront her?" I thought about that morning's conversation. Her cold smile, the way she'd looked at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. Eventually. But first, I want to know exactly what I'm dealing with. Ned nodded. "Smart. Know your enemy before you engage." "This isn't Middle East, Ned." His grin was sharp as broken glass. "No, brother, this is worse. This is personal." Eric Landry turned out to be everything I'd expected and worse. Ned's research painted a clear picture. 34 years old, VP of Business Development at Coastal Tech Solutions, Barbara's company. Divorced twice, no kids, lived in a luxury condo overlooking the harbor. Drove a Tesla, wore $1,000 suits, and had a reputation for sleeping with married women. "Guy's a aggressor," Ned said, sliding a manila folder across his desk. "Talks a big game, but word is he's leveraged to the eyeballs. Fancy car, fancy apartment, all financed. He's living paycheck to paycheck like the rest of us, just with better credit." I studied the surveillance photos Ned had taken. Eric leaving his condo, Eric at expensive restaurants, Eric with his arm around my wife outside the Harborview Motel. "There's more," Ned said. "Your wife's been asking questions about your business, specifically your client list and billing records." "What kind of questions?" "The kind that suggest she's planning to take half of everything in a divorce." "Maybe more." The pieces clicked into place. Barbara's sudden interest in our finances, her insistence that I update our insurance policies, the way she'd been documenting every argument, every disagreement. "She's building a case," I said. "Looks like it, and from what I can tell, Eric's helping. Guy's got connections at law firms downtown." I closed the folder, my decision crystallizing. I need you to keep watching them, document everything, and I need surveillance equipment for the house. Planning to catch them in the act? Planning to survive this with something left. That evening, I installed tiny cameras in strategic locations throughout the house. Barbara came home late again, claiming she'd been stuck in meetings. She barely looked at me during dinner, spent the entire meal texting. "Who's keeping you so busy?" I asked. "Work stuff. You wouldn't understand." "Try me." She looked up from her phone, irritation flashing across her face. "It's complicated, John. Strategic planning, market analysis, not exactly your area of expertise." The condescension in her voice was new, or maybe I'd just been too blind to notice it before. "Right, I'm just the guy who pays the mortgage." "Don't start." "Start what? Having an opinion about my own marriage?" Barbara set down her phone, gave me her full attention for the first time in weeks. "Your marriage? That's interesting phrasing. What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Forget it." But I couldn't forget it. Later that night, lying in bed while Barbara slept beside me, I thought about that phrase. Your marriage. Not our marriage, not this marriage, your marriage. Like it was something that belonged to me alone, something she was no longer part of. My phone buzzed. Text message from the same unknown number. "They're planning something big, be careful." I stared at the message until the screen went dark, then slipped out of bed and went downstairs to my office. The surveillance feed from the living room showed empty furniture, shadows cast by streetlights. but the audio was still recording. I put on headphones, scrolled back through the day's footage. Most of it was routine. Barbara getting ready for work, me eating breakfast, normal domestic life. But then I found what I was looking for. Barbara on the phone pacing in the living room while I was in the shower. "He's getting suspicious," she was saying. "Asked too many questions last night." A pause while the other person responded. "No, I don't think he knows anything specific, but John's not stupid. If we're going to do this, it has to be soon." Another pause. "I know the risks, Eric, but I'm tired of pretending, tired of living this lie." The conversation continued for another 10 minutes. Plans for a weekend trip, discussion of lawyers and asset division, and something else that made my blood run cold. He'll never see it coming. John still thinks we can work this out. I saved the audio file, backed it up to 3 different locations. Then I sat in my office until dawn, planning my next move. Because Barbara was right about one thing. I hadn't seen it coming, but now I did. The slipway had been serving fishermen, dock workers, and gossips for 60 years. Dark wood, dim lighting, and the kind of atmosphere where secrets got traded like currency. Perfect for what I had in mind. I arrived at 5:30, early enough to claim a corner booth, but late enough that the after-work crowd was settling in. Ned joined me 20 minutes later, sliding into the opposite seat with 2 beers. "You sure about this?" he asked. "Barbara thinks she's playing chess," I said. "Time to show her it's actually poker." The key to good intelligence work is patience. You don't force information into circulation. You create conditions where it spreads naturally. Small towns thrive on gossip, and our little coastal city was no exception. Margaret Kelsey arrived first. My next-door neighbor, 73 years old, and the unofficial information hub for our entire neighborhood. She'd been watching Barbara's comings and goings for months, probably knew more about my wife's schedule than I did. "Evening, Mrs. Kelsey," I said as she passed our table. "Oh, hello, John. Ned." She paused, clutch purse held tight against her chest. "How's Barbara? Haven't seen much of her lately." "Busy with work," I said. "You know how it is. All those late meetings." Mrs. Kelsey's eyebrows rose slightly. "Late meetings? That's interesting. I could have sworn I saw her car leaving the house yesterday afternoon around 2. Thought maybe she was taking a long lunch." "Could be," I said casually. She mentioned something about meeting with clients. "Clients?" Mrs. Kelsey settled into conversation mode. "I thought she worked in human resources." "She does, but apparently she's been doing some consulting work on the side. Something about helping other companies with their personnel issues." The lie came easily, wrapped in just enough truth to sound plausible. Mrs. Kelsey absorbed it, processed it, filed it away for future use. "Well, isn't that ambitious of her?" she said. "Though I suppose it explains all the travel." "Saw her loading a suitcase into her car last week." "Business trip to Portland," I said. 2 days of meetings. What I didn't mention was that Barbara had told me she was visiting her sister in Boston, or that her sister had called the house looking for her that same weekend. Mrs. Kelsey chatted for another few minutes, then moved on to her usual table near the window. Within an hour, she'd shared our conversation with at least 3 other people. "Phase 1 complete," Ned murmured. "Just getting started." Taylor Morrison arrived at 7, Barbara's best friend and biggest enabler. Blonde, loud, and addicted to drama, she'd been encouraging Barbara's worst impulses for years. She spotted me immediately, her expression shifting from surprise to something like guilt. "John," she said, approaching our table, "I didn't expect to see you here." Ned and I were just catching up. I gestured to the empty chair beside me. "Want to join us?" Taylor hesitated, then sat down. She looked nervous, kept checking her phone. "How's Barbara?" she asked. "She seemed stressed last time we talked." "When was that?" "Oh, girls' night last week." "Which night was that again? I'm having trouble keeping track of her schedule." "Tuesday, I think, or maybe Wednesday." Taylor's story was already shifting. "We went to that new wine bar downtown." "Funny thing," I said. "I called that wine bar. They don't have any record of you being there." Taylor's face went pale. "Maybe it was a different night, or a different place. You know how it is when you're having fun." "Sure," I agreed. "Easy to lose track of time when you're having fun." The conversation continued for another 10 minutes, Taylor growing more uncomfortable with each question. By the time she left, her story had changed 3 times, and half the bar had overheard our discussion. "You're enjoying this," Ned observed. "Shouldn't I be? Just making sure you know what you're doing. Once this gets out, there's no putting it back." I thought about Barbara's voice on the surveillance recording, her laughter as she planned my destruction, her casual dismissal of 12 years of marriage. "It's already out, Ned. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it." We left the slipway at 9:30. By the time I got home, Barbara was waiting in the living room, arms crossed, expression thunderous. "We need to talk," she said. "About what?" "Taylor called. Said you were asking questions about girls' night?" "Just making conversation." "Nonsense." Barbara stood up, moved closer. "What's your game, John?" "No game. Just trying to understand my wife's schedule." "My schedule is none of your business." The words hung between us like a challenge. I looked at her, really looked, and saw a stranger. Someone who'd been sharing my bed, my house, my life, while planning to destroy me. "You're right," I said quietly. "It's not." Barbara blinked, surprised by my easy capitulation. "Good. Then we understand each other." "We do." But as she headed upstairs, I knew we understood completely different things. She thought she'd won a battle. What she'd actually done was confirm that the war had already started. The Founders' Day festival transformed our sleepy downtown into a carnival of gossip, fried food, and small-town politics. Perfect cover for what I had planned. I'd spent the week since the slipway encounter carefully seeding information throughout the community. A word here, a question there, just enough doubt and speculation to get people talking. Mrs. Kelsey had been particularly helpful, spreading rumors with the efficiency of a military communications network. Barbara seemed oblivious to the shifting atmosphere around her. She'd been distracted lately, spending even more time on her phone, taking mysterious calls in the backyard. The surveillance equipment I'd installed was paying dividends. I now had hours of recorded conversations between her and Eric, planning their future together and my destruction. "You're coming to the festival, right?" Barbara asked over breakfast Saturday morning. "Wouldn't miss it," I said. "Good. Eric will be there. I thought it was time you two met." The audacity was breathtaking. She wanted to introduce me to the man she was sleeping with at a public event, surrounded by half the town. "Looking forward to it," I lied. The festival was in full swing by the time I arrived. Craft booths lined Harbor Street, the smell of funnel cake and grilled sausages filled the air, and a local band played covers on the main stage. I found Ned at the beer tent nursing a plastic cup of something that claimed to be craft lager. "Everything ready?" I asked. He patted the tablet tucked under his arm. "Locked and loaded. You sure about this?" "She wants to play games in public. Let's play." Barbara appeared 20 minutes later, looking stunning in a summer dress that probably cost more than most people's car payments. Eric was beside her, exactly what I'd expected. Tall, handsome in a generic way, wearing clothes that screamed expensive but trying too hard. They made their way through the crowd like visiting royalty. Eric's hand possessively on Barbara's lower back. She was glowing, animated in a way I hadn't seen in months. Happy. "John?" Barbara waved me over, her smile bright and fake. "Come meet Eric." I approached slowly, taking in the details. Eric's confident posture, his appraising look, the way he positioned himself slightly in front of Barbara like he was protecting her. "Eric Landry," he said, extending his hand. "I've heard so much about you." "All good, I hope," I replied, shaking his hand. His grip was firm but soft. No calluses, no scars. A man who'd never done real work. "Barbara tells me you're in security," Eric said. "That must be interesting." "It has its moments. I imagine it's mostly corporate stuff these days. Not much call for the military approach in civilian life." The dismissal was subtle but clear. I was a relic, a man whose skills belonged to a different era. "You'd be surprised," I said. "A lot of the same principles apply. Reconnaissance, intelligence gathering, strategic planning." Eric's smile flickered slightly. "I suppose. Take cheating cases, for example," I continued conversationally. "Amazing how much information people leave lying around. Digital footprints, credit card records, and surveillance footage." Barbara's face went pale. Eric's confident demeanor cracked just enough to show the nervous man underneath. "That's fascinating," Eric said. "But surely that's more private investigator work than security." The lines blur sometimes. I pulled out my phone, pretended to check messages. Especially when you're dealing with people who think they're smarter than they actually are. "John," Barbara interrupted. "Eric was just telling me about his new Tesla. Maybe you'd like to see it." "Love to," I said. I've always been curious about electric vehicles, especially their security features. We walked toward the parking area, Barbara chattering nervously about the festival, Eric growing quieter with each step. His Tesla was parked in a prime spot, gleaming white with custom rims. Beautiful car, I said, walking around it slowly. Must have cost a fortune. It's an investment, Eric replied. Better for the environment. Of course. I ran my hand along the hood, though I heard these things can be hacked pretty easily. Someone with the right skills could access all sorts of information. GPS history, phone records, even the internal cameras. Eric's face went white. That's not possible. Oh, but it is. Amazing what you can learn about someone's habits when you know where to look. I pulled out Ned's tablet, swiped to a prepared folder. GPS data showing Eric's car at the Harborview Motel. Timestamps matching Barbara's business trips. Photos from the Tesla's own internal cameras. Interesting places you've been visiting, I said, holding the screen where both of them could see it. Barbara grabbed for the tablet. I pulled it back, smiled. I wouldn't, I said quietly. We're in public. You son of a jerk, Eric snarled. You've been spying on us. I've been protecting my interests. There's a difference. A crowd was starting to gather. Mrs. Kelsey appeared at the edge of the group, her eyes bright with interest. Taylor pushed through from the other direction, looking panicked. John, please, Barbara whispered. Don't do this here. Do what? Share some interesting photographs with friends? I activated the tablet's airdrop function, began broadcasting the images to every compatible device within range. Phones started buzzing throughout the crowd. Gasps, murmurs, then outright laughter as people saw what I'd shared. Eric lunged for me. I sidestepped easily, let his momentum carry him into the side of his precious Tesla. He bounced off, stumbled, and I caught him by the shirt front. Careful, I said loudly enough for everyone to hear. You might damage something expensive. The crowd was growing, drawn by the commotion. I could see phones being raised, recording everything. By tomorrow, this would be all over social media. You're insane, Eric gasped. No, I replied, releasing him. I'm thorough. I turned to Barbara, who was staring at me with a mixture of horror and rage. 12 years, I said. 12 years I gave you, and this is how you repay me? John, Save it. I looked around at the crowd, at the faces of people I'd known for years. Everyone deserves to know what kind of person they're dealing with. I walked away, leaving Barbara and Eric standing beside his damaged Tesla, surrounded by a crowd of gossiping neighbors with phones full of incriminating evidence. Behind me, I could hear Barbara screaming my name, but I didn't look back. The war had begun. The fallout was immediate and devastating. By Sunday morning, the photos and GPS data had spread throughout the entire town. Barbara's phone rang constantly. Friends, co-workers, her boss demanding explanations. Eric's Tesla sat in his reserved parking spot at Coastal Tech Solutions with 4 flat tires and Homewrecker spray-painted across the windshield. I watched it all from my office, monitoring social media feeds and news sites. The story had legs: small-town scandal, public humiliation, the wronged husband's revenge. Local bloggers picked it up, then regional news outlets. Barbara hadn't come home Saturday night. According to Mrs. Kelsey, she'd left the festival in Taylor's car, crying and screaming about lawyers and restraining orders. Let her try. Everything I'd done was legal, if not exactly kind. My phone buzzed. Ned texting from his shop. Company coming your way? Black sedan, 2 occupants. I looked out the front window, saw the car pulling into my driveway. The driver was a woman in her 50s, professional clothes, briefcase. The passenger was younger, male, probably an associate. Lawyers. I met them at the front door before they could knock. Mr. Walker, I'm Jennifer Hayes, representing your wife in divorce proceedings. This is my associate, David Chen. Little early for a Sunday house call, isn't it? Your actions yesterday constitute harassment and invasion of privacy. My client is prepared to file charges. I smiled. Based on what? Publishing publicly available information? You hacked into private vehicles and devices. I documented my wife's cheating using legal surveillance methods. Everything I shared was either taken in public spaces or obtained through legitimate security research. Hayes frowned. Security research? I run a private security firm, Miss Hayes. Part of my job involves testing digital vulnerabilities. The fact that Mr. Landry's vehicle and devices were so easily compromised is a public service announcement. It was nonsense, but it sounded official enough to give her pause. Regardless, she continued, my client wants to discuss settlement terms. I'm sure she does. Unfortunately, I'm not interested in settling. Mr. Walker, be reasonable. Dragging this through the courts will be expensive and embarrassing for everyone involved. It's already embarrassing, Miss Hayes. The question is whether Barbara wants to make it more embarrassing by fighting me in court. Hayes exchanged glances with her associate. What are your terms? Simple. Barbara gets nothing. No alimony, no property settlement, no shared assets. She can keep her car, her clothes, and her dignity if she has any left. That's completely unreasonable. Is it? She cheating, planned to defraud me in divorce proceedings, and conspired with her lover to destroy my business reputation. I have recordings, photographs, and digital evidence of all of it. You can't prove... I pulled out my phone, played a snippet of audio from the surveillance recordings. Barbara's voice clear as day. John will never see it coming. We'll take him for everything. Hayes went pale. How did you obtain this recording? Security system in my own home, perfectly legal. The lawyers left without another word. I watched their sedan disappear down the street, then called Ned. Phase 2 complete, I said. What's phase 3? Patience. Let them make the next move. I didn't have to wait long. Tuesday morning brought a visit from Detective Ray Morrow, a 20-year veteran of the local police force. I'd met him a few times through my security work. Decent guy, thorough investigator. Morning, John, he said, settling into my living room chair. Hell of a weekend you had. Eventful, I agreed. Got a complaint filed against you. Harassment, stalking, invasion of privacy. You want to tell me your side? I handed him a folder containing copies of everything. The surveillance recordings, the GPS data, the financial records showing Barbara's attempts to hide assets. My wife has been planning to destroy me for months, I said. Everything I did was in self-defense. Morrow reviewed the documents, his expression growing more serious with each page. Jesus, John, she really did a number on you. The question is whether you're going to arrest me for exposing it. Can't arrest you for being smart. He closed the folder. Everything here looks legal, if not exactly neighborly. Good to know. But John, whatever you're planning next, be careful. This kind of thing can escalate quickly. After he left, I sat in my office reviewing my options. Barbara and Eric thought they were dealing with a wounded husband lashing out in pain. They had no idea I was just getting started. My computer chimed with an incoming email. The sender was listed as a friend, the same person who'd been feeding me information about Barbara's activities. They're planning something big. Meeting tonight at Eric's condo. Thought you should know. I stared at the message, wondering who my anonymous ally was. Someone with access to Barbara's schedule, someone who wanted to see her destroyed as much as I did. It didn't matter. What mattered was staying one step ahead. I called Ned. How do you feel about a little nighttime reconnaissance? Like old times? Exactly like old times. Eric's luxury condo occupied the top floor of Harbor Towers, the most expensive building in town. Floor-to-ceiling windows, panoramic harbor views, and security that was more for show than actual protection. Ned and I had cased the building Tuesday afternoon, posing as potential renters interested in the amenities. Cameras in the lobby and parking garage, Ned reported, but nothing on the balcony level. Fire escape access on the north side? What about building security? One guard looks like he's more interested in his phone than actual security. Building's got electronic locks, but they're using an outdated system. Wednesday night, we parked 3 blocks away and approached on foot. The harbor was quiet, fog rolling in from the ocean, muffling sound and reducing visibility. Perfect conditions for what we had planned. The fire escape was exactly where Ned had said it would be, rusty but functional. We climbed to the 12th floor, moved carefully along the narrow maintenance walkway until we reached Eric's balcony. Through the sliding glass doors, we could see them clearly. Barbara, Eric, Taylor, and 2 other people I didn't recognize, a man in an expensive suit and a woman with short gray hair. They were gathered around Eric's dining room table, documents spread across the surface. I activated the parabolic microphone Ned had borrowed from his cousin, who worked in private investigation. The device could pick up conversations through glass from 50 feet away. Financial records show he's got at least $200,000 in business accounts, the man in the suit was saying, plus the house, the equipment, the client list. How do we access the business accounts? Barbara asked. That's where it gets tricky. He's got everything locked down tight since the weekend, changed passwords, updated security protocols. There has to be a way, Eric said. Guy's not that smart. I smiled in the darkness. They still didn't understand what they were dealing with. Actually, there might be, Taylor spoke up. John keeps backup files at the house. I've seen his office. filing cabinets, computer equipment. If we could get access? Breaking and entering is a felony, the gray-haired woman said. I recognized her now, Linda Morrison, Taylor's aunt, and a partner at one of the bigger law firms downtown. Not if Barbara still lives there, Taylor replied. She's got a right to access her own home. Legally, yes, but given the current situation. What if we made it look like John was the problem? Eric suggested. File a restraining order, claim domestic violence, get him removed from the house temporarily. Based on what evidence? Linda asked. We'll create evidence, Barbara said quietly. Bruises, threatening messages, witnesses who'll say they saw him lose his temper. The casual way she discussed framing me for domestic violence was chilling. I adjusted the microphone, made sure we were getting clear audio. That's perjury, Linda warned. If you get caught, we won't get caught, Eric interrupted. John's already shown he's unstable. Public humiliation, stalking, harassment. Won't be hard to convince people he's escalated to violence. And once he's out of the house, the man in the suit asked. We clean out everything valuable, Barbara said. Business records, client files, bank information, transfer what we can, destroy the rest. What about after the divorce? There won't be anything left to divide. Barbara's smile was cold as winter. John wants to play hardball? Let's see how he likes being broke and homeless. I had heard enough. Ned and I retreated along the maintenance walkway, climbed down the fire escape, and disappeared into the fog. They're planning to frame you, Ned said as we walked back to his truck. I know. This is serious, John. Domestic violence charges, even false ones, could destroy your business. Only if they succeed. What's the plan? I thought about Barbara's face as she discussed destroying my life. The casual cruelty, the complete absence of the woman I'd married. We're going to give them exactly what they want, I said. Come again? They want me to look unstable, dangerous. Fine, let's give them a show they'll never forget. Ned grinned. Now you're talking my language. Back at the house, I spent the rest of the night preparing. Downloaded the surveillance footage from Eric's condo, backed up all my files to secure servers, and began planning the most important operation of my life. Barbara wanted to destroy me? She was welcome to try, but she was about to learn that some enemies fight back. Thursday morning brought the restraining order served by a nervous deputy who kept apologizing as he handed me the papers. According to the court documents, I had 24 hours to vacate the premises and was prohibited from coming within 500 feet of Barbara or her workplace. The allegations were creative: threatening behavior, destruction of property, stalking, and implied violence. Barbara had even included photos of bruises that looked suspiciously fresh and professionally applied. Sorry about this, John, Deputy Martinez said. For what it's worth, most of us don't believe it. Appreciate that, Ray. You got somewhere to stay? I'll figure something out. What I figured out was that Barbara had made her first serious mistake. By forcing me out of the house, she'd given me the legal justification to do what I'd been planning all along. I called Ned from my truck. It's happening. You ready? Been ready since Middle East, brother. Good. Phase 3 starts now. I drove to a storage facility on the outskirts of town, rented a unit under a false name, and began moving my most important possessions. Computer equipment, files, weapons, and enough surveillance gear to monitor a small city. Everything I'd need for the final phase of my plan. Meanwhile, Barbara was moving fast. According to my sources, I'd cultivated several informants among her coworkers. She'd called in sick and spent the day at the house with Taylor and Eric, going through my office and personal belongings. They found exactly what I wanted them to find. Fake financial records showing hidden assets, dummy client files with inflated contracts, and a carefully crafted paper trail suggesting my business was worth far more than it actually was. What they didn't find were the real files, the actual bank accounts, or the evidence I'd been gathering about their conspiracy. That evening, I checked into the Seaside Motel, a rundown establishment on the edge of town that rented rooms by the week and didn't ask too many questions. From there, I had a clear view of the main road leading to the house and could monitor police communications on a scanner. My phone buzzed with a text from my mysterious informant. They're celebrating. Think they've won. Time for the final move. I smiled, typed back. Tomorrow night, Harbor Towers. Be ready. The response came immediately. Looking forward to it. Friday crawled by with agonizing slowness. I spent the day making final preparations, checking equipment, and reviewing every detail of the plan. Barbara and her conspirators were moving forward with their scheme. filing additional legal papers and spreading rumors about my dangerous behavior. Perfect. The more convinced they were of their own success, the harder they'd fall. As evening approached, I positioned myself in the parking garage beneath Harbor Towers. Ned was stationed on the roof of the building across the street with a clear view of Eric's balcony. Our communications were encrypted, our equipment tested, and ready. At 8:30, they arrived. Barbara, Eric, Taylor, Linda Morrison, and the man in the expensive suit, who I'd identified as Marcus Webb, a forensic accountant with a reputation for creative bookkeeping. I watched them enter the elevator, then activated the building's fire alarm system. The building's outdated security made it embarrassingly easy. A few keystrokes on my laptop, and every alarm in Harbor Towers was screaming. In the confusion of evacuation, I slipped into the building through a service entrance, took the stairs to the 12th floor, and positioned myself outside Eric's condo. Through the door, I could hear them arguing about whether to leave or stay. "It's just a false alarm," Eric was saying. "Happens all the time in these old buildings." "We should go," Linda insisted. "If there's really a fire—" "There's no fire," Barbara interrupted. "This is John. He's trying to disrupt our meeting." Smart woman. Too bad she was also completely wrong. I waited until the fire department arrived and began their sweep of the building. Then I knocked on Eric's door. "Fire department," I called out. "Mandatory evacuation." The door opened, and Eric found himself face to face with me. His expression went from confusion to terror in the space of a heartbeat. "Hello, Eric," I said, pushing past him into the condo. "Nice night for a conspiracy." The 5 conspirators stood frozen in Eric's living room like deer caught in headlights. Documents were spread across the dining table. My forged financial records, legal papers for the fraudulent divorce proceedings, and what looked like a detailed plan for destroying my business. "John," Barbara said, her voice carefully controlled, "you're violating the restraining order." "Am I? I'm responding to a fire alarm in my capacity as a licensed security consultant. The building management company is one of my clients." It was a lie, but it sounded official enough to give them pause. "This is harassment," Linda Morrison said, reaching for her phone. "I'm calling the police." "Please do," I replied, pulling out my own phone and setting it on the table. "I'm recording everything for their benefit." Marcus Webb started gathering up the documents, but I was faster. I swept the papers off the table, scattering them across the floor. "Interesting reading material," I said, picking up a page. "Fraudulent financial affidavits, plans to commit perjury, conspiracy to commit theft. Linda, I'm surprised at you. This could cost you your law license." "You don't understand the situation," she said. "I understand it perfectly. My wife and her lover decided to destroy me, and they recruited you to help them commit multiple felonies." "We haven't done anything illegal," Eric protested. "Haven't you?" I pulled out a tablet, began scrolling through files. "Filing false police reports, perjury and divorce proceedings, conspiracy to commit fraud, breaking and entering. Yes, I know you've been in my house going through my files." "Barbara has a right to access her own home," Taylor said. "Under a restraining order obtained through perjury? I don't think so." I looked around the room, taking in their faces. Fear, anger, desperation. They were beginning to understand that their carefully planned scheme was falling apart. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "You're going to withdraw the restraining order, drop the divorce proceedings, and leave me alone. In exchange, I won't press charges for conspiracy, fraud, and perjury." "You can't prove any of that," Barbara said. I smiled, activated the tablet's display function. The wall-mounted TV came to life, showing surveillance footage from Eric's condo the night before. Their voices filled the room, discussing plans to frame me for domestic violence and steal my business assets. "Actually, I can prove all of it." The room went silent, except for the sound of their recorded voices planning my destruction. I watched their faces as the full scope of their exposure became clear. "You were spying on us," Eric said weakly. "I was protecting myself from criminals. There's a difference." "This recording is inadmissible," Linda said. "You obtained it illegally." "Did I? Eric, did you notice the new security camera on your balcony? The one the building management installed last week?" Eric's face went white. There was no camera, but he didn't know that. "You're bluffing," Barbara said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Am I? Linda, you want to bet your law license on that? Marcus, you want to risk your CPA certification? Taylor, you want to see how cheating and conspiracy charges look on your social media profile?" One by one, they were breaking. I could see it in their posture, their expressions, the way they avoided eye contact. "What do you want?" Barbara asked quietly. "I already told you. Withdraw the restraining order, drop the divorce, disappear from my life. Do that, and this recording stays private." "And if we refuse?" I looked at my wife, my soon-to-be ex-wife, and felt nothing but contempt. "Then I destroy all of you, publicly, legally, and completely." The fire alarm finally stopped blaring. In the sudden silence, I could hear sirens in the distance, fire trucks returning to the station, the all-clear being given. "You have 24 hours to decide," I said, heading for the door. "Choose wisely." I left them standing in Eric's condo, surrounded by their scattered conspiracy documents and the wreckage of their plans. Outside, I met Ned at the predetermined rendezvous point 3 blocks away. "How'd it go?" he asked. "Better than expected? They're finished?" "All of them?" "All of them." We drove back to the motel in comfortable silence. I felt lighter than I had in months, like a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying had finally been lifted. My phone buzzed with a text from my mysterious informant. "Beautiful work. They deserved everything they got." I stared at the message, then typed back, "Who are you?" The response came immediately. "Someone who knows what betrayal feels like. Someone who wanted to see justice done." I never did find out who my anonymous ally was, but whoever they were, they'd helped me win a war I couldn't have won alone. The next morning brought capitulation. Linda Morrison called at 7 a.m., her voice tight with barely controlled anger. "My clients agree to your terms," she said. "The restraining order will be withdrawn today. Divorce proceedings will be dismissed. Smart choice. This isn't over, Walker." "Yes, it is. Unless you want to explain to the State Bar Association why you were helping clients commit fraud." She hung up without another word. By noon, the legal papers were filed. By evening, Barbara had moved out of the house, taking only her personal belongings. She left no note, no explanation, no attempt at reconciliation. Just empty closets and the faint scent of that expensive perfume I'd smelled that first night. Eric transferred to his company's Seattle office within the week. His Tesla was found abandoned in the airport parking garage, keys in the ignition, windows still spray-painted with accusations. He left behind an apartment full of expensive furniture and a reputation that would follow him anywhere social media reached. Taylor deleted all her social media accounts and moved back in with her parents. The recordings I'd made of their conspiracy had somehow found their way to her employer, a conservative insurance company that took a dim view of employees involved in cheating scandals. Marcus Webb lost his CPA license after the state board received an anonymous tip about his involvement in fraudulent divorce proceedings. Linda Morrison kept her law license, but lost several major clients when word spread about her participation in the conspiracy. As for me, I kept the house, the business, and my dignity. The surveillance equipment came down, the locks were changed, and I began the slow process of rebuilding my life. Mrs. Kelsey brought me a casserole the day after Barbara moved out. "Shame about your marriage," she said, settling into my kitchen chair like she owned it. "But honestly, John, you're better off without her." "Think so?" "Oh, I know so. That woman was trouble from the start, always putting on airs, always acting like she was too good for the neighborhood." "You never mentioned that before." Mrs. Kelsey smiled. "You never asked. Besides, a man has to figure these things out for himself." She left the casserole and a knowing look that made me wonder if my mysterious informant lived closer than I'd thought. 3 months later, I received a package with no return address. Inside was a single photograph. Barbara and Eric at what looked like a bus station, both looking haggard and defeated. On the back, someone had written, "Justice served." I never found out who sent it, and I never tried. Some mysteries are better left unsolved. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I sold the security business and moved to a small town in Montana. Clean air, clear skies, and neighbors who minded their own business. I bought a cabin on a lake, learned to fish, and slowly remembered what peace felt like. Sometimes, late at night, I think about those final months of my marriage. The lies, the betrayal, the elaborate conspiracy to destroy me. I think about Barbara's face when she realized her plan had failed, about Eric's terror when he understood the scope of his exposure. I don't feel guilty about what I did to them. They made their choices, planned their betrayals, and paid the price for underestimating their target. In war, the side with better intelligence usually wins. In marriage, apparently, the same rule applies. I never remarried, never felt the need. I'd learned everything I needed to know about trust, loyalty, and the price of betrayal. And sometimes, when the wind is right and the lake is still, I can almost convince myself I'm happy. Almost. But happiness was never the point. Survival was the point. Victory was the point. And in the end, I achieved both.